Welcome to the Kingdom Generals, where we present and preserve the lives, sacrifices, consecrations, burdens, battles, victories, and enduring legacies of men and women through whom God shaped nations and generations in no specific order. In this series, we reflect on the life and ministry of Smith Wigglesworth, born on the 8th of June, 1859, in Menston, Yorkshire, England, a plumber, itinerant evangelist, healing minister, and one of the most extraordinary figures of early Pentecostalism. Before the miracle meetings, before the dead were raised and the sick were healed, before entire nations were shaken by signs and wonders, there was a barely literate young man from the mill towns of northern England who could not read until adulthood, yet carried within him a hunger for God that would set the earth trembling. He was not a formally trained theologian, not a product of religious institutions, and not a man of remarkable social credentials. He was, in the simplest terms, a man who believed the Bible absolutely. That belief, expressed in radical obedience, produced a ministry so unusual in its supernatural character that historians and theologians have debated it for over a century. His ministry touched every inhabited continent, catalyzed what many regard as prophetic seeds for future global revival, and established a pattern of spirit-empowered, word-centered ministry whose influence continues to reverberate through global Pentecostal and charismatic movements to this day. Before Smith Wigglesworth became one of the most celebrated healing evangelists in Christian history, he was first a Yorkshire plumber's boy who met God in the fields. Born on the 8th of June, 1859 in Menston, a village in the West Riding of Yorkshire, he entered the world into poverty so acute that he was working in the wool mills by the age of 7. His childhood offered no educational privilege, no theological formation, and no prophetic atmosphere beyond what the Holy Spirit himself would bring. Yet within this bleakest of beginnings, the seeds of an extraordinary life were already being planted. At the age of 8, young Smith reportedly had a conversion experience and sensed a call of God upon his life that he could not fully articulate but could not ignore. By the time he was a teenager, he had moved to Bradford, where he worked as a plumber and encountered the Salvation Army, a movement whose fire, boldness, and street-level evangelism would permanently shape his instincts for ministry. The Salvation Army taught him that the gospel was not a drawing room affair. It was a confrontation with the streets, the broken, the lost, and the desperate. He was not a spectator of that confrontation. He was a participant from the very beginning. As a young man, he personally funded the sending of young men to sea for mission, paying their fare from his plumber's earnings. What the formal church had not yet given him, obedience had already begun to teach him. The most humanly humbling element of his formative story, and the one most often overlooked, is that Smith Wigglesworth could not read until he was an adult. His wife Polly, Mary Jane Featherston, whom he married on May 2nd, 1882, was the one who taught him to read, specifically to read the Bible. This is not a small biographical footnote. It is one of the most theologically significant details of his formation. The man who would later be described as moving in extraordinary measures of the Spirit received his entire early spiritual formation, not through books and commentaries, but through spirit, obedience, and the direct instruction of God. When he eventually read the Word, he read it as a man already conditioned by encounter, not merely by education. There is an account preserved in ministry history of Polly locking Wigglesworth out of the house one evening so that he would be forced to preach in her place. He returned that night a different man. Something had broken open in him at the pulpit that the workshop and the waterworks had never reached. God had been preparing a vessel through poverty, through illiteracy, through a godly wife's persistent faith, and through the slow furnace of ordinary life. The general was being made in secret before he was ever seen in public. God sometimes chooses the man who cannot read to confound those who have read everything, because he is not looking for academic credentials. He is looking for absolute belief.